Welcome everyone to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security-oriented policies to guide the state of Israel. We are a movement of more than 20,000 people, including many reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense establishment. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning in to this briefing and our previous briefings. Today, I am joined by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, as well as Ambassador Yoram Ettinger. I'll introduce Yoram in a minute after we hear a war update from General Avivi. General Avivi is right now in southern Florida. If anyone is in the Palm Beach area, the general is going to be speaking at the Palm Beach Synagogue this evening at 6:30 p.m. So if you want to see him in person, it's a wonderful opportunity. And with that, General, please, what can you share with us?
Hi, Moshe. Hello, everybody from sunny Florida. Happy to be here. I think these are very dramatic days. A lot of news talking about the hostages and where this is all going. Many numbers. People talk about a month and a half, 4 months of ceasefire. I think that these numbers are very, very exaggerated. So we'll have to wait and see. Of defense that have destroyed, and this is the new generals participated with the Prime Minister talking about re-operate in Rafah and get control of the Egyptian border.
General Avivi, it's very hard to hear you. We're going to try to turn off your video, maybe just have the audio, and that'll make it easier to hear. Are you still there?
Okay, you hear me now?
It's a little bit better.
Yeah. Moshe, you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so basically the Ministry of Defense announced that the Khan Yunis brigade was destroyed, and now we are going to Rafah. And I think this is a huge announcement. It's a very important one, because Rafah is the key for winning against Hamas. Everything that Hamas has is coming from Egypt. All the build-up of power, all the weapons, the money, terrorists and technology are coming from the Egyptian border. And when the IDF says, and the government says, we really want to take from Hamas its power as a governmental entity, controlling the Egyptian border and everything that goes in, including all the humanitarian aid, this is probably the most crucial issue in really overpowering Hamas. So this is a complicated issue because there are many Palestinians in Rafah that need to be moved towards the shore, and this might take a bit of time. Also, sensitivity with the Egyptians, who are not really happy. They're afraid that the Palestinians will storm the border and cross to Egypt, and they are pressuring Israel in this sense. But I hope that we'll do the coordination and the right things in order to expand the ground incursion into Rafah, and this can make a huge difference and really move us towards winning the war. The Khan Yunis brigade was the brigade of Sinwar, and destroying it, this is very meaningful. Unfortunately, although the IDF is fighting inside the tunnels and found several strategic tunnels that also we know that they were keeping hostages in these tunnels, we haven't encountered yet the leadership of Hamas or the hostages, and this means that probably they escaped to Rafah, and this is why it's crucial to expand the ground incursion into Rafah. The more we destroy Hamas, the more we pressure them, it will be more difficult for them to come with demands, talking about the release of the hostages. Therefore, we have to keep the military pressure. The IDF is continuing with raids in the central camps and the northern part of Gaza, all the time destroying more and more forces of Hamas. I think we're killing between 30 to 100 terrorists every day. So this is very, very meaningful. Meanwhile, the IDF is expanding the attacks in Lebanon and also in Syria. Just today, there were 6 attacks in one place in South Lebanon, and the army is starting to train units for a possible war in the north. While all this is happening, we're being pressured a lot by the administration, who, although we are in a completely chaotic situation and war, are trying to push the idea of a two-state solution, which is completely disconnected from reality. But I believe that this is part of the administration's strategy, talking about the upcoming elections. They want to see peace agreements. And I think what is realistic is pushing the peace agreement with Saudi Arabia, as long as we don't involve also Palestinians in these discussions. Saudis already said they are willing to move forward without any concrete steps regarding the Palestinians. But the administration is still all the time trying to push the idea of a two-state solution while we are in the midst of a war. Although the administration would like to be less involved, we see that more and more we are seeing the administration involved in attacks in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, and being drawn to this regional and global war. I don't see how the administration can go around this, and I believe that they will find themselves more and more drawn to what is happening in the Middle East. And in a sense, this is an opportunity to maybe really build a coalition that will be able to counter also Hezbollah and try to push a diplomatic solution. Israel is trying to push a diplomatic solution to push Hezbollah from the south of Lebanon to the north. But the chances of success are completely dependent on American leadership. And this is something that we see that is still lacking. And I feel that the administration doesn't really want to go all out and threaten Iran and Hezbollah the way it should be done. And this, unfortunately, brings a reality where the possibility of war in the north is growing. But first and foremost, we have to win against Hamas, and this is what we need to be concentrating on. Thanks, Moshe. I'll throw it back to you.
General Avivi, thank you so much for that. And it's a great segue, that last topic about the U.S. interests here in Israel, to our guest, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger. Yoram is an Israeli researcher, diplomat, writer, lecturer, and consultant to Israeli and U.S. legislators and their staffers. He's an expert on U.S.-Israel relations, Middle East affairs, and Jewish-Arab demography. So, Yoram, thank you so much for joining. Secretary Blinken's visit here in Israel, what do you make of it? What do you think the state of U.S.-Israel relationship is right now?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that this visit by Secretary Blinken, just like previous visits, aim at intensifying pressure on Israel, primarily on the Palestinian issue, the proposed Palestinian state, which Secretary Blinken has been addicted to for decades now, in addition to putting the pressure on Israel to switch from fourth and fifth gear in the war against Hamas to second or first gear, and certainly also to ascertain that Israel does not preempt against Hezbollah. The interesting thing is that there is a very significant difference or gap between the position of Secretary Blinken on Israel and the position embraced by the various arms of the US national security, the military, the intelligence, and primarily the US military command here in the Middle East, or as they call it, the Central Command. And the difference is that as far as Israel or Israeli military Central Command, the collaboration is unprecedented. And it's not a collaboration which aims to assist Israel, it's a collaboration which aims to leverage the event for the benefit of both sides. The Central Command is studying the Israeli military battle tactics, whether it has to do with military medical element, whether it has to do with urban warfare or Air Force bombing intensity and maintenance and repairs and overhauling of the engines of F-15, F-16, etc. And certainly when it comes to intelligence, the collaboration with the US has to do with the current war, as well as different US military confrontations throughout the Middle East, which have been assisted by Israeli expertise, specifically or mostly intelligence. When it comes to Secretary Blinken, the focal point from his point of view is going to be, once again, his idea of establishing two states peacefully coexisting side by side, which is a reflection of the detachment from Middle East reality. Who does not want peaceful coexistence between Israel and the Palestinians, or between the Ayatollahs of Iran and every Sunni Arab country? The problem is that reality conflicts with that wishful thinking. And when it comes to Palestinian state, there is a dramatic gap between the position of Secretary of State on the one hand and the pro-American Arab countries on the other hand. Every single pro-American Arab country embraces the Palestinians with very positive talk, but the walk has been anywhere from indifferent to negative by the Arabs towards the idea of a Palestinian state. And the difference between Secretary of State position and the position upheld by every single pro-American Arab country has to do with the fact that Secretary Blinken bases his position on the idea of a Palestinian state on some future speculation. He speculates that the two states will peacefully coexist. He does base it on very peaceful diplomatic proclamations by Palestinians. On the other hand, the Arabs, the pro-American Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Egypt, Jordan, etc., they don't preoccupy themselves with futuristic speculative scenarios. They are preoccupied with the actual track record of the Palestinians, especially in the inter-Arab sphere, and that record is replete with subversion and terrorism and treachery and ingratitude by the Palestinian leadership towards every single Arab country which hosted them and enabled them to act against Israel, Egypt in the 1950s, Syria in the 1960s, Jordan in 1968, 1970, Lebanon 1970 through 1982, and Kuwait in 1990, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, at that time the most generous Arab host of the Palestinians. They hosted about 400,000 of Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas relatives and friends, allies, and those Palestinians joined the Iraqi plunder invasion of Kuwait, and that was the reason that upon resuming control of Kuwait, the leader of Kuwait, Sheikh Sabah, expelled almost all 400,000 Palestinians. And the conclusion by Arabs is very obvious, that based on the track record of the Palestinians, they can expect another rogue regime in the Middle East should there be an independent Palestinian state. They have come to the conclusion that such a state would mean the demise of the pro-US Hashemite regime east of the river, which would transform Jordan into a non-controllable country with different terrorists competing over control of Jordan and creating ripple effects into the Arabian Peninsula, threatening the survival of every single pro-American, oil-producing Arab regime, which would be bonanza for the Ayatollahs of Iran, China, Russia, the Muslim Brotherhood, and quite a setback to the US economy, US homeland security, and US national security. And in addition, they are also aware of the role played by the Palestinian leadership throughout the years in the global scene, the collaboration with Nazi Germany, Second World War, the collaboration with the Soviet bloc after Second World War, collaboration with Ayatollah Khomeini upon seizing power in Iran, collaboration with North Korea, very tight collaboration with the Muslim Brotherhood, with Venezuela, with Cuba. And their assumption, which I believe is realistic, is that should there be a Palestinian state, the Palestinians will allow expanded foothold by the Ayatollahs of Iran, by China and Russia in their territory, whether Gaza along the shore of the Mediterranean or in Judea and Samaria. And the Arabs are aware that the Palestinian track record means that they bite the hand that feeds them. They did bite the hand of the Egyptians and Syrians and Jordanians and Lebanese and Kuwaitis, etc. And they are going to bite the hand of the Americans who keep feeding them. And last and not least, I wish Secretary Blinken's speculation about the future would be in touch with the Middle East. But I learned during my years in Texas, where I went to school and I served as a diplomat, and I visit a few times a year. In Texas, they taught me, you don't kiss chicken until they grow lips. At this stage, the Middle East chicken haven't grown lips yet. It's premature to try and kiss them the way the secretary has been trying to do.
I feel like I just got the Cliff Notes version of 50 years of history of Israel and US relations in the Middle East. Let me ask you, when Secretary Blinken comes to Israel, do you think he hears a resounding message that Israel does not want a two-state solution? Or does he meet with different diplomats and officials and he doesn't get that message? Meaning, is his insistence on a two-state solution coming from him and an administration, or is there an honest assessment based on who they're meeting with that it could actually succeed?
Well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the worldview of Secretary Blinken for the last few decades, since his days as a junior staffer and then senior staffer on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the worldview has always been consistent with a Palestinian state, with a two-state solution. The secretary does not hide the fact that in his worldview, he's basically a cosmopolitan multilateralist. He wishes to establish common denominator between the US and the UN, the US and the Europeans, and those elements, especially the UN, are not consistent with, they're in conflict with the best interest of the US as well as of Israel. So there's no doubt in my mind he will try to intensify the pressure on Israel. However, I don't want anyone to assume that I ignore the very tight collaboration with Israel. And Secretary Blinken undoubtedly plays a role in the fact that military systems are supplied to Israel, the ammunition is supplied to Israel, that at least so far, the US does back Israel in the UN and other international forum. But this again has been the routine between US and Israel. Presidential pressure on Israel side by side with expanding collaboration. And the collaboration in defiance of the pressure has been a result of reality. Reality is much stronger than wishful thinking or oversimplification of the Middle East. The Israeli capabilities, military high-tech capabilities are unique, not only in the Middle East, but are unique in the world. And the US certainly wishes to minimize its military presence in the Middle East, but cannot ignore the fact that the Middle East has been an epicenter of anti-US Islamic terrorism with a reach all the way to the US homeland. And when they think about minimizing the military presence, they ask themselves, who is going to fill in the void? They cannot trust NATO, which has lost its will to flex a muscle. They cannot trust any Arab country. The only country they can trust has been Israel. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Israel has been a battle-tested laboratory for the US military, as well as for the US defense and aerospace industry. And Israel has been a unique multiplier of dollar and national security, which the US cannot afford to give up, irrespective of disagreements over the issue of a Palestinian state or united Jerusalem.
General Avivi, are you still with us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I wanna just ask a question to you based on what Yoram just noted, that on the one hand, there is a very high level of collaboration between Israel and the US on an operational military level. You know, Marines, Green Berets come over to Israel and train. And on the other hand, now there's this disconnect on this diplomatic kind of vision level. Do you think this disconnect could seep into the operations and the collaboration between the militaries, or is that so strong that there's nothing for Israel to worry about on that level?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Moshe, obviously on the military level, there is a very, very good cooperation with Central Command. We train together, we understand the challenges with Iran, and they are fighting almost every day with militias in Iraq and the Houthis in Yemen and so on. So they get it and they understand the challenges. Talking about the administration, I think that on one hand, as Yoram said, we are getting the umbrella we need in the Security Council. We're getting munitions, we are getting weapons, we're getting money, we're getting a lot of assistance. On the other hand, this administration, much like Obama's administration, is really fixated on the idea of the two-state solution as the one solution that will really bring peace. And we know this is not the case. And it's a challenge to really try and explain to the administration that this is a dead end. It's not going to happen, and certainly not the two-state solution they are pushing, which includes the withdrawal from the Jordan Valley, includes the withdrawal from Judean and Samaria. This is basically saying to Israel, eliminate yourself, cease to exist. And this is something, of course, we cannot do. The Israeli society is completely against, also the government. But there are politicians in Israel that, in order to appease the administration, would do anything. And this is very, very dangerous. And we have to be very alert and make sure that we don't do again the follies we have done in the last 30 years, which brought us to this terrible massacre and war that we're experiencing now.
Thank you. We have about 2 minutes left. So Yoram, I want to ask you one final question, and we only have about a minute for the answer. But before I get to that, a lot of people are writing in the chat asking how they can hear General Avivi. I guess we have a lot of viewers right now in Southern Florida. So if you go tonight to Palm Beach Synagogue, 120 North County Road in Palm Beach, Florida at 6:30 p.m., you can hear him speak. That is the details. Palm Beach Synagogue this evening, 6:30 p.m. With that, Yoram, final question. Secretary Blinken's presence in Israel right now, is it helpful for the hostage situation, or does it just add more pressure and make things more complex?
Well, the hostage situation depends solely and fully on Hamas. At this stage, Hamas is determined to have Israeli cessation of war, not just suspension, but cessation of war as a precondition for the release of hostages. And that basically means that it will have to be Israeli military pressure, military operation, which could snatch the hostages from the jaws of Hamas, and any pressure on Israel only strengthen Hamas and make them much tougher nut to crack.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger. Thank you so much, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Moshe.
Absolutely. It's great to see the General back on our briefing. We've missed him this past week or so. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, take care, everyone.